All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. So whenever you guys are watching this, I hope you are enjoying so far how we're doing this. I hope you're learning a lot along the way. I wish we could be in the classroom together, but today's lesson is again going to be a virtual lesson for you guys, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to have multiple breaks throughout this lesson so that you guys need to answer the questions before you move forward, and it counts as a grade. So let's get started. All right, so very first thing up on the board is we're going to be talking about relations today. And what the relations mean is relations between points on a graph, okay? You guys are going to be, there's a whole bunch of vocabulary that we will be discussing today. So if you have the notes, please make sure you print those out. And if you don't have the notes, then make sure you pause this video quite frequently, because you can pause it and write some of these things down, because it's very important as we move forward. We're going to be talking a lot about the coordinate system, a plane. You guys know what X and Y axes are, the origin. Some of you may not know what that is, okay? The origin point is 0, 0. Just so you guys are fully aware, this is the origin, 0, 0, okay? It looks like a smile, looks like a face. Ordered pair is the same thing, but it's a different set of numbers, okay? X and Y coordinates, relation, mapping, domain, range, and then what's called an independent and dependent variable. It's very important that you guys understand these things, and we'll talk about them as we go throughout the day. All right, so here is a setup of how you would graph or display ordered pairs, okay? So you start with your ordered pairs here. 1, 2, negative 2, 4, and 0, negative 3. And then you would translate those into a table. And then you can also take these ordered pairs, translate them into a graph. And then lastly, you can take the ordered pairs and translate them into what's called a mapping. That's what we're doing today, okay? You guys need to be able to determine what the difference is between the three, and to be able to create these on your own, not only just for right now, but later on as we get going forward. The only thing on here, and we'll talk about it, that is unique is mapping, okay? Everything else is straightforward. When we say ordered pair and tables, we're going to be dealing a lot with these two this year. We will be doing a lot with graphing as well this year. The one thing we won't cover a lot of, except for right now and maybe a little bit down the road, is mapping. Okay, mapping isn't really used by us. It is used later on, especially in statistics. We use mapping hugely, but that's not for now at this point, at this juncture. Okay, so express the following ordered pairs as a table, a graph, and as a mapping. Okay, so what I'd want you guys to do on notes, if you have them set up, would be to simply draw these things out. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is a table. X and Y across the board, simple as that. Okay, we have the graph already set up here, and then we also have a mapping. So a mapping is kind of got a big, I guess you could call it oval, something like that. Okay, now the big key thing with mapping is it says domain and range. Remember what we've been discussing multiple times at this point already, is that domain is your X values, range is your Y values, okay? So here's where it would be simple for you guys to understand, all right? So our first one here is a 4, and then we got a negative 2, but you can go across, so it'd be 4, 3, negative 2, negative 1, 2, negative 4, and 0, negative 4, okay? That's a simple table setup, right? So if you want to fill out the rest of it where you go like this, you can, okay? Even if you want to do the lines in between, you can as well, because that's how a table represents, all right? That's how you'll see it on a calculator. I know I have kind of weird handwriting sometimes when we're doing these, but drawing it out and graphing it. 4 over, 3 up, so negative 2, negative 1, 2, and then you go down negative 4, and then 0, so you'd stay on 0 and you got a negative 4. There's your points, okay? There are your 4 points, not difficult. Now here's the domain and range part, right? So now you're doing the same thing. You do your values of 4 and 3, and then your next one would be negative 2, negative 1, and then you could go 2 and negative 4, and then you put your last one, 0, but here's the difference. There's already a negative 4 there, so you don't write another negative 4. You only write it once. But what you do with mapping is you draw and connect the dots, okay? Or you connect the arrows, you could say, for 2 points. So 4 is associated with 3, negative 2 is with negative 1, 2 is with negative 4, and 0 is with negative 4. So that's how you do a mapping, okay? Simple setup, but just make sure you do this appropriately. All right, so what I want you guys to do is pause the video. Okay, and go ahead and do the notes on these, and then we'll see if we have an ed puzzle that I'll throw in. Okay, please make sure you guys give me the ordered pair. I don't think I can pause this one here. We'll see about that. So your ordered pairs would be 4, -3, 3 and 2, -4, 1, and 0, -3, just like that, okay? Now you're graphing it out, same thing, over 4, down -3, 1, 2, 3, over 3, up 2, -4, so you go -4, 1, oops, 1 up, and then 0, -3, 1, 2, right there. All right, there are your 4 spots. Domain and range setup. The domain and range, hold on, let me bring this up. Okay, same setup with the numbers. So I'd go 4, -3, and I'd go 3, 2, -4, 1, and a 0, and then I already got a -3, so I don't write that again. But when you connect the arrows, you'd go there, and there, right, just like that. Okay, it looks different, but what you guys need to understand is that's kind of the simple setup. Now, do you have to arrange these into a specific sequence? You don't. Now, most of the time when you see them, though, you will see them listed as greater to less than. It's not going to be marked wrong, okay, if you don't do it that way, and that's okay. All right, so what we're going to do now, in a relation, the value of the variable that determines the output, okay, is called an independent variable. So we have talked about before what the output is. All right, most of your independent variables are going to be your x values, okay? They're going to be the ones that go horizontally, like time is independent of itself, okay? When you're doing a temperature, it's independent of itself, okay? Those things are the big things that you guys need to understand. The variable that the value is dependent upon is called the dependent variable. Well, I'm going to spell this wrong. Nope, yep, I did. Dang it. All right, so it'd be dependent. A lot of E's and a lot of D's. All right. The blank contains values. Okay, this is going to be the domain, like we talked about. And then the other one is going to be the range. Okay, the range are usually the dependent variables. So like when we're talking about when you're making money, okay, you can't control how much time there is in reality, but what you can control is if you're making a certain hourly wage, it goes up as you go to the right, okay? Usually that's how it works, so that's how it's dependent. All right, so what we're gonna do is identify a couple different things here, okay? So there's a word problem. In the warm climates, the average amount of electricity used rises as the daily temperature increases and falls as the daily average temperature decreases. Identify the independent and dependent variables, okay? So we are going through this. The big thing is you guys need to know is that independent is something you can't control. And that would be what? What can't you control here? Well, you can't control, as much as I would like to think we could, the average temperature. Weather is weather. It's going to be hot. It's going to be cold. It's going to be somewhere in between. It could rain. So dependent, of course, in this would be amount of electricity. I think I spelled that wrong, but that's okay. Hopefully you guys get the concept, right? The next one, the number of calories you burn increases as the number of minutes that you walk increases. Okay, so what you guys need to know is the independent variable is what? Independent. And for some reason I always struggle writing independent no matter where we go. Is what? If you think about it, number of what? Number of minutes you walk. Whoops, not miles. Sorry. minutes. Okay, because that's something that is independent. So you're walking. Remember, it's usually time function related. And then what's the dependent? The dependent would be the calories you burn. Okay, so that would be dependent. Okay, simple setup, right? One goes with the other and vice versa. All right, so what I want you guys to do now is go ahead and I'm going to pause the video here. There's also going to be a question for you. I want you to identify what the independent and dependent variable are of each one of these questions. All right, so there were going to be two questions back to back on here, guys. Hopefully you guys figured it out and understood exactly what we're wanting here. All right, so I'm just going to highlight these to make it easier and so we can go a little quicker through this. All right, so if it's independent, all right, I'm going to go yellow. All right, so what is independent? Air pressure inside the tire increases with the what? Temperature. So independent is the temperature. All right, you guys know you can't change the temperature. So what's the opposite? Would be air pressure inside the tire increases, right? And that is the dependent variable. And then the other thing we have here, make sure we can see the purple, and we can. So dependent again, as the amount of rain decreases, so does the water level of the river, okay? Dependent is water level of a river, okay? Independent is amount of rain, okay? So it's not necessarily the decrease part, but it's the amount of rain, because if the rain increases, what happens? So does the water level, okay? So please make sure you guys understand the difference between what is independent and what is dependent. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about graphs of functions. And I want to make sure you guys can give me the domain and range of every single one of these, because it's very important this year that you can do this for me, okay? I can't stress enough that we're going to hammer these a lot. Now, if we were in class talking and sitting down and having a good time together, I would show you probably a wrestling video real quick, because as a wrestling fan, there's a popular faction that came out in the late 90s that I probably couldn't show some of it in school, called D-Generation X, and they went by the moniker DX. So I always associate the domain with the X that way. And so if you have the D and the X, then you know our range would be the Y value, right? So what I want you guys to do is on here, you'd put domain, and then you would put range. Okay, so what are the differences? Domains is the X values. So as I'm going from left to right, I just want you to write down the X values, right? So if I'm going here, I know I have a point at -2. And then I keep going, I have another point at -1, I have a point at 0, and I have a point at 4. Okay, that's the domain going left to right. Now if I go bottoms up, okay, so it doesn't matter how you write this down, I just need to make sure you have the numbers, okay? Bottoms up, so you start from the bottom and you go up. All right, as I'm going up, the first dot that hits is going to be -2, because that's at the Y. All right, so as I'm going up at Y, I got another one at -1, and I keep going up. I have one at 3, and then lastly, I have one at 4. And that's it, okay? Domain and range. That's the domain and range of each function. Now, do these points line up? No, I don't care. Now, if you did a mapping, then you would draw and connect the arrows, right? A table, we're not talking about doing a table right now. I just want you to tell me what the domain and the range is, okay? So same thing, D and R, okay? And it's gonna be dx and then the ry, simple like that, all right? Domain and the x value, the range and the y value. So same thing, left to right. As I'm going to the left on this graph, I see the first point is at -1, and then I keep going, I got one at 2, I have one at 3, and then my last one is at 4, right? 2, 3, and 4. If I go R from the bottom up, I would have one at -4, right? So if I'm going horizontally this way, I got one at 0, and then I keep going up, I have one at 2, and then my last one is going to be at 4. Once again, that's the range, okay? Now, on this last one, what I want you to do, ladies and gentlemen, is the video is going to pause, and I want you to give me the 4. I want you to give me, we have the dx and the ry. What I want you to give is, I will give you the domain, okay? The domain going across is going to be, so as I'm going here, my x values, it's going to be -4, 1, 2, and 3. Video is going to pause, you give me the range. All right, so on there, how I would want you guys to do it is just give me the simple setup, the 4 numbers. So as you go on this, I know you guys are paying attention. It's -2, 0, 1, 3. Simple as that, okay? If I put a multiple choice in, hopefully it was easier for you guys. I'm not sure how I'm going to build this up yet, but just know I'm going to continue to pause the video. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about a functionality, and these are a little bit more trickier, okay? Because what this is saying is I'm going to graph this. If you were to graph these functions, basically have your values sitting here, okay? And so what we have to do is make sure we understand what we are looking at. And so what you guys need to know is that f of x, okay, is the same thing as y. So I could say if something is f of x here, I could basically be saying y equals something, okay? So for example, right here, our very first one says f of x is -2, okay? So if I'm going like this, f of x equals -2. Remember, you can replace it, so technically it's saying y equals -2. All right, sweet. So let's look at this graph, and you tell me when y is -2, so remember, y value is the same as the domain, same as the range. Okay, so if we're going up and down on this graph, here is the -2 value right here. Okay, so what it is then y is -2. You have to tell me exactly what point we're looking for here. Okay, so as we go through this process, I want you guys to make sure that you understand y is at -2. So it's at this point right here. We have 2 points. It can be this one right here, or it could be this one right here. Okay, we have 2 points on this one. So know that if I were to say find one value for the x, I only need to find one. Which one's the easiest to find? It's going to be the one that has a little, this is the minimum. Remember, we have already talked about this a little bit. A minimum of a maxima here. This is a minimum, so your value would be, your point would be -1, -2, just like that, okay? So when it says find one x value, your x value would be what? -1. So I'll highlight that one real quick. Okay, hopefully you guys understand. All right, so find one x value for which this is, and then you need to find f of -3. So what does that actually mean? So what that means is that when you're going through this process here, let me change this up real quick. And we're going to do this multiple times so you guys can understand this, so you're not thinking yourself, what in the world is he talking about? Okay. One of the big things as you're going through is making sure we understand this simple setup, okay, this concept. All right, the next thing is find when f is -3. And remember what's supposed to be there. It's an x, right? So what you're trying to do now is tell me when x equals -3. What is the what? Do we know what the y value is? The answer is no, we don't. Okay, so now when x is -3, so you'd go on this graph, and you'd go over here till you get to -3. And then you would go up on -3 and see where's a point, and a point is right there. Okay, so if we have x is -3, then that means f of -3 equals what number? We're going to put in a graph, equals 4. All right, so this is very sophisticated and difficult things to do, all right, because I want to make sure you guys can analyze what a graph is saying to you. Okay, so next one. All right, so as we're going through this, same thing, f of x. So f of x equals -4, which means that y equals what? -4. So if y equals -4, we're going up and down on this graph. We know that we're going to be plugging this in when y is -4, which is only right here. My x value is what? 0. Okay? Now we'll do the other one. Okay? So when f of 2. Okay, so what does that mean? Remember, f of 2 means your x value is 2. So we got to work backwards, right? So when x going horizontally like this, okay, when I'm going over here to x, when x is 2, what is my y value going to be? Well, you've got to go up and down and figure out where it intersects, and it intersects right here. And hopefully you guys can see that number across the board. That is 1, 2. So when it's down there, my y equals -2. Okay, so wherever x, when x is 2, my y is what? -2. Okay, that's how that works. All right, the very last one, same thing, right? So you write it out, f of x equals, and I put it here as 4, which means y equals 4. All right, so if y equals 4, what does that mean to you guys? Same thing. Okay, as you're going on here, Y is a vertical point. So, because remember, if you're plotting this out, so for everybody that's getting confused, remember it's X and Y, right? So if my Y value is 4, I know I've got a point way up here somewhere on 4. The only one that's up here is right here. So because that is that case, X is 0. All right, and then the very last one on here is find f of -2. So f of -2 equals, we don't know what it is yet, but we know that this is what? That's an x, and x equals -2. So wherever on this graph, if I were to start plotting out points on this graph, I'd go over -2, and the only one that would point would be right there, okay, which would be y equals 2, just like that. Okay, so hopefully you guys understand as we're going through this, I need you to be able to interpret what a graph looks like. Rewind this video if you have to, or go on my YouTube page and you can watch it again, okay? And I have it set up in a different way on my YouTube video. Set these out and make sure you guys understand the difference, okay? Start by going slow and going it from there. Now, what I want you guys to do is, on here you have your own, I have you a couple challenges on here. Same thing. When you're going through this, oops, sorry. There we go. When you're going through this, same setup, right? Start by going f of x equals, and then 3, because that's what that says, and then change it to y equals 3, and then give me the values, and then you would give me the second number as well. Same with here, f of x equals 2, and then you would go y equals 2, and then you give me a value. And then the last one here, f of x equals -1, and then you would say y equals -1, and then you would give me your value right here, okay? Give me your x. You're trying to find what x equals. So you're just gonna plot it out on the graph, and you go from there, right? And then you need to find the other one. So the other one, remember, it would be f of, oops. So you remember your setups, right? Your setup on this one would say f of 1. We don't know what that is yet, but because this is x, we know that x equals 1. We don't know what y equals. So this is very important that you set things up like this, okay? When my main goal for you guys in teaching is to teach you guys how to set things up. So this one here is f of 3. Okay, and it's going to equal something, but we don't know what y is yet, but we do know what is x. X is 3. Now what I want you to do is set up that last one on your own. The video is going to pause, and I want you guys to tell me what this x value is. All right, so hopefully you plugged in the x value. Remember, if you're saying y is 3, so you know, going vertically speaking, that y is 3, you have two options here, right? You have this one right here, and you have this one. So either one of these examples probably would have been acceptable, where you put in either a -2 or a what? 2. Okay? That's the only time you're going to run into is when you have a parabola that goes a funky shape like this. Now, what this video is going to pause again. I want you to tell me what y equals. All right, so if x equals 1, right, we're going horizontally here, y would equal 0. Simple, okay? Video is going to pause again. Give me what this answer is here for x. All right, so on these, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you have this set up, right? So if y is 2, so if I'm going up to y is 2, I have a couple points I can choose from. I have 1 is 1, and then if I go all the way over to here, it actually does the same thing, and y is also 4, okay? It's either 1 or 4. All right, video is going to pause once again. Tell me what y is. All right, so when you're going through this, make sure you know if x is 3, so I'm going over to 3, and I go down, I'm at what? -2. Okay, it's all about reading a graph, and here comes the simple one. Give me the x value there. All right, so if y is -1, okay, so if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, where's my y value at? Well, I know my y is at -1, then guess what? My x values can be 2 or -2, okay? If I go 2 over and 1 down, there's a point. -2 over, 1 down, guess what? There's another point, Okay, now you give me your last function. So this one's going to be f of 1. We don't know what it equals yet. We're looking for y, but we know x equals 1. Give me what y is. Okay, so hopefully you guys have this set up here, right? So we know at this point that if x is 1, if I go over to 1 here and I go down, that my point is going to be at -4. Okay, going to be checking all these. Make sure you guys understand this concept. It's very important. This is challenging for some of you because you've never had to read a graph. You're going to have to start doing that in my class. Okay, the very last thing here is pretty simple. I'm going to do this one here, and then you guys will give me this an order of sequence, right? So tell me what happens between A to B. You guys should know if I'm looking at this graph going left to right, from A to B, I got a decrease, right? And then from B to C, I have an increase. And then from C to D, it doesn't do anything. So it's steady, is what we call it. And then the last one from D to E is also an increase. Okay, this is the beginning stages of reading what a graph is. All right, next, A to B is you're doing what? You're increasing these. All right, and then B to C is a decrease. The video is going to pause and you tell me what the last two are. All right, hopefully you guys have it set up as steady and decrease. All right, challenging for some of you today. Okay, it's a big key factor as we move forward. I'm going to start challenging you guys even more. And it's sometimes difficult when it's virtually. But the main goal is understand what we're doing, learn how to read those graphs, because you're going to have it on your ALEKS homework as well. If you have any questions, come see me during office hours or hit me up, and then I can make sure I see you and give you some more additional help. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.